Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've talked about this comic a lot off and on, and I realized I've never really gone through it in full depth for you, so I'm going to do that right now. This is Uncanny X Men Annual number 11. It came out in 1987, cost a whopping $1.25, which is a incredibly good price for the comic that you ultimately will get. In terms of timing, this came out kind of right after Mutant Massacre. A couple new members to the X Men had arrived. We had Betsy Braddock had kind of just shown up. Longshot was there. Dazzler had come onto the team. So it was a team in a bit of a flux. There were, familiar faces, but in general, it was going through some change. You have more the elder statesmen of the X-Men at this point are Wolverine and Storm. And this issue, first of all, it's Chris Claremont. And at this point, Chris Claremont has, the X-Men pretty much on lock. He knows what he's doing. He's got the characters really well defined. He understands kind of the strengths and how to play them. And this annual really was a chance to set up the team, what they love, what they fear, and kind of their strengths and weaknesses. And in many ways, this annual is about exposing a lot of those weaknesses. And if you think about comics today, and the people seem really reluctant and fearful of ever having the characters show any weakness. So this is almost the opposite of that. Anyway, Chris Claremont's on writing. The combo of Alan Davis and Paul Neary are on pencils and inks, and that is just, again, as good as it's going to get. Tom Urthowski is on letters. Glennis Oliver's on colors. Oliver had several things. Ann Nocenti was the editor at this point. Anyway, this comic is really about kind of what tempts these characters, kind of their weaknesses, what they have to overcome. And it's a relatively simple story, but it's told very masterfully. So it kicks off, Wolverine is coming back to the mansion. He is drunk, and he is immediately greeted by several members of the X-Men, many of which are new. Again, the only person there, you do have Rogue, but she doesn't show up outside. But the other members, Dazzler, Havoc, Longshot, and then Captain Britain and his wife Megan are visiting Betsy. And so really the only person who's fought with Wolverine for any length of time is Storm. And so the other X-Men are kind of making fun of Wolverine a little bit for being drunk. They're kind of, can you believe this guy? Like, this guy shouldn't even be on a team. There's a lot of, holier than thou type, behavior. And, they're kind of really, after him for being a bum and a slob. And Storm is like, let him be, he'll be himself tomorrow. And they keep talking about, is this what it's like? And keep in mind, the X-Men are reeling from the events of the Mutant Massacre. You've got Kitty and Nightcrawler and Colossus taken off the shelf. Xavier's nowhere to be found. You've just got a lot of turmoil in this. And so that night, kind of later, we see Wolverine, he's sobered up quickly because he can, because it's healing factor. And it's revealed that part of why he got drunk, it is the anniversary of his wedding to Mariko-chan, who is, by the way, you wouldn't call him Mariko-chan, but anyway, I'll give that aside. Anyway, she had sent him away, so it's really a moment of kind of dealing with his shame and his suffering of what he's dealing with. So right at the gate, we're seeing a little bit of Wolverine's pain, is where it goes, and it's told very, very well. I love you. How can any warrior survive when he's cut out his heart? And this is the softer part of Wolverine, very much to his honor. So, as the night unfolds, Storm is attacked. The X-Men rush in, and we get this. They're pretty much immediately put down. And again, you get a moment where Wolverine rushes in, and he almost slices Dazzler as he's running. And so there's more of just like, watch out, you could have hurt her. We're getting just more of the other X-Men kind of looking down on him. But this villain shows up and basically demolishes the entire X-Men team, and then identifies himself as Horde. And there's a little bit of a dragon-like aspect to him, and that is what Claremont's going for here. He's an alien. He transports the X-Men away with his amazing powers, reveals he's kind of a mutant of his own. But more than anything, he's a scavenger. And he makes it very clear he can destroy them at any moment, and that they're going to do something for him, basically a big task. And he taunts them for a while. The balance here again is the team was looking down at Wolverine, and now they've got a villain here who clearly outclasses all of them. And they even all kind of band together to really kind of lay it on thick. Everybody fights when it's not even a scratch. So basically, the idea is that Horde wants them to go to this location. There's a legendary treasure, the Crystal of Ultimate Vision. It's hidden within the Citadel of Light and Shadow in the universe, and it's going to grant kind of cosmic omnipotence to whoever holds it. And so he's sending the X-Men after it, and some basic taunting, but the X-Men realize they don't really have a choice, so in they go. So again, once the X-Men are outcasts in comics at this time, the Mutant Massacre had hit. They are not the shining, sparkling heroes of the Fantastic Four and the Avengers. They are the people who dwell in the shadows. So this heist basically is the X-Men being used to be thieves to go into this the Citadel, which also is very on brand for how the X-Men are at this moment. They're dangerous, but they're also on the outside. So they head into the Citadel. They notice all these statues, kind of these various races that we've seen: the Krull, the Kree, the Skrulls, and many others that we've seen in various comics. And in they go, and they send. Longshot's very reluctant. He's not liking it, kind of right out of it. And Dazzler kind of tempts him in, says basically, "We need you. As a team, we have to have it." But he's very uneasy. He does not like it. They immediately discover they are then trapped in the Citadel. And Wolverine goes out to scout, and just as he leaves, we see kind of the true trap of this place, which is Rogue kind of spots a vision behind this kind of crystal glass, and sees herself in the Old South as a plantation princess. We'll leave off, maybe some of what's going on there, we'll just move along. But Rogue is basically like, I'm the belle of the ball. Attention everywhere, laughing, loving, happy in a way I've never been. I wish I could be this. And the crystal just absorbs her into it, and she freezes and kind of turns to dust because she's basically made this fantasy her reality. She's succumbed to her temptations and her weakness, which is identified as always being an outcast, never being able to touch or form real human affection. And now she just gets to live a normal, happy life. So we see her weakness, and she submits to it and vanishes. And as they wander further into the crystal, there's more, not quite horror elements going on here, but clearly there's things wrong. Longshot starts to disappear. Havoc, who is got a chip on his shoulder as a character, is arguing with Captain Britain, and he's like, I don't need to take it. Basically you see his insecurity coming to the head. And he says, look, if this is how you're all going to treat me, well, then I none of you know what it's like to outbe me. I'm insecure, but I have to stay absolutely in control, or my power will blast out of it every stinking second of every stinking day. He turns into a star in his mind, which is him submitting to his weakness, and he then as well turns to dust. During this time, Longshot disappears. He's basically sucked into the Citadel. His luck-based powers, his differentness is just absorbed into the rest of everything, proving his fear of not being a person, for being a kind of a nobody who is part of everything but is no individual himself. Dazzler, horrified by this, runs away. This is one of the most haunting parts of the whole book. Dazzler gets a vision of herself as a lawyer, putting the Kingpin on trial, which is what her father always wanted. And then she sees a vision of herself as a huge rock singer, being a star, and that would be her dream. And then she sees a third path where she is just a homeless person scouring for scraps, living with rats, and kind of eating out of the garbage. And she's given a choice of kind of her father's vision, her heart's desire, or kind of this other life, and decides with everything that she is, no one to depend on, no one to blame but herself, never taking a risk, never having to worry about making a mistake, failing, being hurt. There's safety in defeat and luxury and self-pity. And she embraces the kind of the homeless bum personality of it. So now the X-Men are down, basically Captain, Wolverine, who's off scouting. You've got Captain Britain and Megan, you have Storm, and you have Psylocke. Psylocke starts to realize that she's slowly turning into metal. And at this point, Captain Britain and Megan see a vision of themselves kind of as a happy family. They invite Megan to be a part of it, but she rips off her skin to just embrace her metal side of it. This leads Captain Britain and Megan to abandon their duties and responsibilities, just being a happy family with a child. And Psylocke, as a emotionless guardian, her fears have been that she won't cut it, that everybody's after them. Now she's fully embraced her differences, her otherness, and she goes off to make a final stand against Horde. So really, the comic is leaving us here with Wolverine and Storm, which again are the elder statesmen of the X-Men at this point. They've been teammates and they've been together, so it makes sense that they're going to last. They don't have the same baggage. For the reader who's reading this, you've just gotten a crash course in all of the dynamics and the interesting bits and parts of the X-Men in a really clever and unique way. So it's just a brilliant way to introduce you to a new cast and kind of where where their struggles are. Again, leaning into their weaknesses is what we're going to see them kind of battle and overcome in the regular comic. So Wolverine finally faces Mariko, his wife. He sees her in traditional Japanese garb, and then he sees her in kind of punk sexy mode, where they get to be a brawler, a wild woman for Wild Man. He desperately wants it. He says, "I want you so much it hurts," but he rejects all of it. And tumbles down into the heart of the Citadel where the crystal is. Storm also gets pulled away by Yukio, and she is tempted with kind of a free life as a thief, and she also rejects it. But unlike Wolverine, her clothes, the personality she adopted is sticking with her, meaning her heart is actually still back in this old world. She's still struggling with this. But we've now seen the brawler, the drunk from the beginning that everybody looked down upon as the one who's actually at most at peace, or at least with what, or most accepting of his flaws. So they show back up with Horde. Unfortunately, Betsy has been destroyed. Wolverine shoves Storm back into her illusion, and it says she tries to resist, but this time she embraces it and allows herself to be consumed by the Citadel. It's now just Wolverine. He's impaled in the back, but as Horde rips out his heart, his blood drops on the crystal, and that basically is his healing factors. His soul is there, and it triggers that he got to the crystal first before Horde did, and he regenerated, recreated, and easily defeats Horde. Kind of rips off this crystal that was keeping him alive. And turns him to dust. And then Wolverine has basically gained this cosmic omnipotence. He's now, the most powerful being in the universe. He can sense everything, see everything, touch every soul. He can transform, shape, create, heal, and destroy. But he realizes, stop before I start. I'm talking like God, only I ain't God. As long as this crystal exists, it is a threat. We are best to live with our strengths and our flaws. And he shatters the crystal behind him, destroying everything, ending the adventure. They're returned to the mansion from where they began, restored. And the X-Men, kind of all like, we had the same dream, but they're struggling with what they've learned about each other and kind of what it revealed. And then they see, where's Wolverine? And Wolverine is in his room. And he's, basically kind of in silent prayer to Mariko, and kind of the X-Men see him as standing guard, watching over us, worthy as the X-Men's champion. And the night fades away. The tower ultimately regenerates to be this temptation that tests people. But that's how the comic ends, and it's a powerful comic. And again, like I was saying through the video. What makes it so powerful is that it fully leans in and touches upon the strengths and weaknesses of the characters, exposes them. You get an entertaining story out of it, but it really gives depth and dimension in one simple comic that a lot of issues, a lot of writers really struggle with today. So an amazing issue. Get your hands on it. Uncanny X Men Annual number 11, again from 1987. It's hard to find, full disclosure. If you want a mint copy, it's going to cost you a lot. But you can get a cheaper version of it, one that's not graded tin, And you can still pick them up at some places. I saw it at a store recently. They're selling for $12. I'd have this in your collection. It's just a really, really great book. Anyway, an example of what the annuals once were. Amazing writing, amazing art, and now you know. So there you have it, and thanks for listening.